Again, thank you everyone for joining us this morning. If you are watching live, this is a view from the International Space Station. That small white dot just left of the center of the screen is Dragon Endeavour as it continues its journey home, bringing Crew-6 back to Earth after 184 days on the International Space Station. We expect that journey to last about 17 hours, with the crew splashing down at 12:17 a.m. Eastern Time, Monday, September 4th, so tomorrow morning. And on board, we have our 4 crew members, 2 NASA astronauts, which are Steve Bowen and Woody Hoburg, our commander and pilot respectively, as well as mission specialists UAE astronaut Sultan Alneyadi and Rocosmos cosmonaut Andrey Fedyaev. It was the first flight for 3 of the crew members, Fedyaev, Alneyadi, and Hoburg. However, it was the 4th flight for Steve Bowen. We saw an on-time undocking today, the command being sent at 6 a.m. Central Time, and undock itself coming at 6:05 a.m. Central Time as the International Space Station was flying over the Pacific Ocean. That undock came accompanied with a series of very rapid moments, including hook retraction of 2 sets of hooks. Those are 2 sets of 6, so 12 hooks in total. Additionally, we had 2 short depart burns 0 and 1. Those helped break the stiction from the capsule to the International Space Station and sent it on its journey home. The journey home has been nominal so far, again, that coming at 6:05 a.m. Central Time, so just about 36 minutes ago. It was a smooth process as the crew got into the Dragon capsule this morning as well, with them getting suited up after the hatches were closed and monitoring the undock. We're reporting from Mission Control Houston today, where since the crew has exited the approach ellipsoid, which is an invisible boundary around the International Space Station, we have ended our joint operations, which are the times when the International Space Station team and the Dragon team at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California, work with each other to ensure safety of Dragon and International Space Station as they are in close proximity. However, teams here are still monitoring the flight home, as well as, of course, all systems aboard the International Space Station, where we still have 7 residents. With the departure of Crew-6 this morning, we have 7 astronauts and cosmonauts living on the International Space Station, including Frank Rubio, NASA astronaut, Roscosmos cosmonauts Sergei Prokopyev and Dmitry Petelin. Those 3 arrived on a Soyuz spacecraft and will be returning home later this month with a total of 371 days on this mission, which will be a record for most time in space on a single mission by a U.S. astronaut. Frank Rubio will take that title. Additionally, Crew-7 just arrived last week, bringing with it Jasmine Mombelli, NASA astronaut, as well as ESA, European Space Agency astronaut, Andy Mogensen, JAXA astronaut, Satoshi Furukawa, and Roscosmos cosmonaut Konstantin Borisov. They will be on station for approximately 6 months. It is a Sunday aboard the International Space Station, and they operate in Greenwich Mean Time, so it's approximately 11:43 a.m. GMT for those crew members. A handful are enjoying their midday meal, some are exercising, and Frank Rubio, NASA astronaut, was on tap to assist with the ingress, hatch closure, vestibule depressurization, and undock monitoring for Dragon this morning. again, this is just the beginning for our Crew-6 crew on their journey home. But this has been under review for the last several days as we look for just the proper undock criteria, ensuring a safe splashdown off the coast of Florida. Some of those criteria we look for are wind speeds, wave heights, and wave periods, as well as we don't want any lightning within 10 miles and no greater than 25% probability of lightning. Also, we would like less than 25% probability of rain. So we determined that the undock time of 12:17 a.m. Eastern Time, we would meet all of those conditions, and we were able to send the crew home this morning. Dragon's still in view here from the International Space Station. It continues to get farther from the station, now about 13 miles away. Dragon and the International Space Station in an orbital daytime off the coast of Brazil. Flying 262 statute meters above Earth. We'll hear limited comms from the crew during the transit home. They do go into a crew off-duty period. They have the opportunity to get out of their suits, get out of their seats, be a little more comfortable. They can have a meal. They can sleep if they choose. They can look out the window and enjoy their final day in space before splashing down back on Earth.
Dragon SpaceX for timeline.
SpaceX Dragon, go ahead for timeline.
All right, looking ahead, we've got your Depart Burn 2 coming up per displays in just under 7 minutes here. We also do have the liquid burst disk test scheduled to start around that same time. You have a go to start that test procedure early if you're interested, all the way up through the end of Step 6, and then we'd like for you to pick up with the injections in Step 7 after the Depart 2 burn, with the ultimate goal to try to finish the test before Depart 3 burn 45 minutes after that. How copy?
Go for the burst disk test through the end of Step 6, and then we can pick up. Everybody is complete with that. We'll pick up with the burst disk test.
And Woody, I'm back with you on Dragon to Ground. Sorry, I called you right during the salute of the burn, so I didn't catch your full last.
Oh, no problem. Just reading back your call. We're all doing a quick round of use of the commode, and after that, we will be picking up with that test. We copy or go through the end of Step 6 anytime, and then we can continue with Step 7 after the Depart 2 burn, coming up in just under 5 minutes. And then
Hello from the International Space Station Flight Control Room in Houston. This view coming from the International Space Station itself. We are still monitoring the return of Crew-6 aboard Dragon Endeavour. They undocked at 6:05 a.m. Central Time this morning. We don't have them in frame anymore. They continue to grow farther away from the International Space Station, targeting an a splashdown at 12:17 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow morning, Monday, September 4th. It was a smooth undocking this morning, and the crew is now on the off-duty portion of their return flight, so we might not hear too much comms from them as they have the opportunity to get some sleep as well as eat some food and get out of their suits and remain comfortable for the ride home. They will get back in their suits ahead of the claw and trunk separation later tonight, which we will be back on air for. They'll remain in their suits all the way through the deorbit burn and splashdown period, and will egress the capsule once it's brought aboard recovery vessel Megan. And we just had confirmation that Depart Burn 2 has begun right on time. This is an 82-second burn. Continues to move Dragon out from station's vicinity, bringing us back to Earth. And as you can see, we are in a tracking data and relay satellite system handover. We do periodically lose communications with the International Space Station as our satellites change from one to another. These are tracked, these are understood. We expect to regain communications with the International Space Station shortly.
Dragon SpaceX. We had a successful Depart 2 burn, and you are now go for the entirety of your test procedure.
As we heard the core crew operations and resources engineer tell Dragon they had a successful depart burn 2. They will have depart burn 3 later today. That will come at 7:45 a.m. Central Time, so about 45 minutes from now. We'll have a total of 5 depart burns today, and again, we'll be live on mission audio coverage until we resume NASA TV coverage ahead of claw and trunk separation this evening. We also anticipate the potential of a prop wasting burn this afternoon. This is done to offload propellant, which makes Dragon lighter and provides extra margin during re-entry. Again, another satellite handover. We will see these periodically throughout the day. They have a varying duration as we pass over certain ground stations that allow us to communicate with the International Space Station, but they are tracked, and we will regain communications, video, and audio shortly.
SpaceX Dragon, it's at 4.6. We have no airflow. We're ready to get the fan configured to a lower speed for the test.
Copy, Dragon. Ready for the test. We're about to step into a 5-minute LOS, so we'll pick up on the other side with that command.
Okay, we'll leave it on for 5 minutes, and we'll hold at the start of step 5.
Good readback.
That audio you're hearing is a conversation between Core, the crew operations and resources engineer, and it sounds like Commander Steve Bowen aboard Dragon Endeavour. The Core is the only person speaking with the crew at this point from the ground. They are located in Hawthorne, California at SpaceX Mission Control. Teams here in Mission Control Houston continue to monitor the return of Dragon Endeavour and the Crew-6 members. However, they are working and focusing on the International Space Station, and the Capcom here is the person who communicates with the astronauts and cosmonauts aboard the orbiting laboratory. Again, we are in a satellite handover, therefore we do not have video communications with the International Space Station at this time, so we're standing by for regaining that satellite. Again, we do track these, and this happens periodically as we switch from ground station to ground station. We've regained live video with the International Space Station, this view coming from the station itself. Again, we are monitoring the return flight of Crew-6 aboard Dragon Endeavour. They undocked at 6:05 a.m. Central Time, so about 1 hour and 10 minutes ago. A smooth undock this morning, and we're targeting splashdown off the coast of Florida at 12:17 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow, Monday, September 4th. Again, very smooth this morning for the crew. We've had a handful of steps that led to the undocking. That includes the 2 sets of hooks, 6 on each, so 12 hooks total, opening, as well as 2 undock burns, which break the stiction and begin moving Dragon away from the International Space Station. That led to depart burns 0 and 1. We've also since then had a successful depart burn 2.
SpaceX Dragon, are you ready for us to pick up on 5?
And Dragon, SpaceX, you are good to start on Section 5. We're just sending the fan speed command now.
Copy, we'll be listening. And SpaceX Dragon, we hear their fan move to a lower speed.
Good catch, Dragon. Yep, fan speed command is complete. So you're good to proceed with the following steps. And looking to come back on board with video if you guys are okay with that.
And SpaceX Dragon, you can bring the cameras back on board.
Copy, thanks. In work now.
Good morning, everyone. We are live in Mission Control Houston. I'm Leah Cheshire of NASA. Again, we have been tracking the undocking and departure of Crew-6 aboard Dragon Endeavour from the International Space Station. This view from the station itself. The Crew-6 astronauts and cosmonaut have been communicating with the core in Hawthorne, California at SpaceX headquarters. They undocked at 6:05 a.m. Central Time this morning. It was a very smooth process and have conducted everything through departure burn 2 at this point. The crew are now out of their suits as well as their seats. They will have the opportunity to get some rest or eat a meal, as well as enjoy these last few hours ahead of their splashdown coming up at 12:17 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow morning, Monday, September 4th.
Dragon SpaceX for test procedure.
Red SpaceX.
Hey, I just wanted to sync us back up and check in on what step you are in this test procedure.
Engine's ready, and we've got the Sharpie ready to go.
All right, copy that. Syringe ready and Sharpie.
I'm ready to step into step 7.
Copy. Step 7, and you are go to proceed in those steps.
All right, continue to step 7. SpaceX Dragon, we're stepping to step 7.5.
Copy. You are go to proceed with that first injection.
Beginning with first injection.
Again, we are live here in Mission Control Houston at Johnson Space Center. This view coming from the International Space Station as we continue to monitor the flight home of Dragon Endeavour with Crew-6. Right now, the International Space Station is flying 256 statute miles north of Papua New Guinea. And we saw undock this morning of Crew-6 at 6:05 a.m. Central Time, right on the money. They're targeting a splashdown off the coast of Florida tomorrow morning, 12:17 a.m. Eastern Time. They spent 184 days aboard the International Space Station. They continue communicating with the teams in Hawthorne, California, the Crew Operations and Resources Engineer, and still have some milestones coming up until we get to that undock later. Until we get to that splashdown, that is. We saw a successful undock as well as depart burns and undock burns this morning. Our next burn will be in about 15 minutes. We'll see depart 3. These continue to move Dragon away from the International Space Station and position it for the largest burn, which is the deorbit burn later this afternoon. That deorbit burn is what will commit the crew and spacecraft to its splashdown location. After the crew members splash down, they'll be recovered by the SpaceX recovery vessel Megan. It's already at its position in the ocean off the coast of Florida. Some fun facts about Crew-6's time aboard the International Space Station. While living and working there, they saw the arrival of 7 visiting vehicles. This includes 2 SpaceX Dragons with cargo resupply missions. Those are 27 and 28. 2 Progress resupply ships. 2 Dragons bringing crew. That'd be the AX-2 private astronaut mission and the Crew-7 mission just last week, as well as the Northrop Grumman Cygnus spacecraft bringing cargo as well on its 19th resupply mission. Crew-6 arrived at the International Space Station on March 3rd earlier this year. They initially docked at the Zenith, or the space-facing port, on the Harmony or Node 2 module. However, today they undocked from the forward port. That's because there was a port relocation maneuver conducted earlier this year to allow the cargo resupply Dragon to dock to that Zenith port. We wanted to have Dragon on its cargo mission docked to the Zenith port to allow for easier access to the International Space Station rollout solar arrays in the trunk. That Zenith port allows for that easier access. With the Canadarm2, it removed the IROSAs from the trunk. They were later installed on a series of spacewalks conducted by 3 of these Crew-6 crew members. And again, this live feed from the space station is in a satellite handover at this time. We will regain communications shortly.
And SpaceX Dragon, 3 minutes, first disc still not ruptured, moving to the second syringe.
Copy that, no rupture on the second syringe.
Starting on the second syringe, we have not injected second time yet.
Copy all, Dragon.
The Crew-6 astronauts and cosmonaut are conducting a test with the teams in Hawthorne, California. After this is complete, they'll move into their crew off-duty period in which they can take a nap. They can really use their time as they please. They are out of their suits and out of their seats. They won't be requested to get back in their suits or seats until prior to the trunk separation later this evening.
Dragon SpaceX, we are go for the upcoming depart burn 3. The slew has just begun, and the burn is coming up in just about 6.5 minutes.
And SpaceX Dragon copies. We're ready to monitor the burn and syringe to see if that burst or not. I'll be back in a minute.
Copy all, Dragon.
SpaceX Dragon, we have confirmed that the burst disk has ruptured, and we're moving on to 8.3.
Copy, Dragon. The disk has ruptured. Understand, and you are good to proceed to 8.3.
Okay.
And we just heard confirmation from the core in Hawthorne that the slew, or the change in attitude for Dragon, is begun. This is in preparation for the Depart 3 burn. That's coming in about 5 minutes at 7:45 a.m. Central Time. This is just another maneuver that puts us in the proper positioning for the largest burn tonight, which will be the deorbit burn. Again, we are going to be live back on NASA TV for that. That commits us to deorbit. That commits us to our splashdown location. Again, the crew members also continue to work on a test with the teams in Hawthorne, California. So that's some of the other comm that you hear. Meanwhile, this is a live view from the International Space Station, and we are live in the International Space Station Flight Control Room, where teams continue monitoring Crew-6's journey home, but especially the International Space Station. We currently have 7 crew members living on the International Space Station. For the past week, it's been 11 after Crew-7 arrived last Sunday. Right now aboard, having arrived on a Soyuz spacecraft, are Frank Rubio, NASA astronaut, as well as Roscosmos cosmonauts Sergei Prokopyev and Dmitry Petelin. Crew-7 brought up NASA's Jasmine Mogbelli, ESA's Andreas Mogensen, JAXA's Satoshi Furukawa, and Roscosmos' Konstantin Borisov. Being that it is a Sunday, it is considered an off day for the crew members on the space station. Some of them did have some work this morning. We saw NASA astronaut Jasmine Mogbelli and ESA astronaut Andy Mogensen working to load Dragon with some cargo and cold bags. However, most of the monitoring was done by NASA's Frank Rubio. He assisted in the hatch closures, vestibule depressurization, and of course, keeping an eye on Dragon as it departed the International Space Station. A few of the crew members are now enjoying their midday meal. We also still have exercise on the docket for them today. Astronauts are required to exercise about 2 hours each day while they're on the International Space Station to help preserve muscle mass and bone density. This helps them reacclimate to Earth much quicker once they return. We've just entered the Orbit 2 shift in the International Space Station Flight Control Room in Mission Control, Houston. This room is staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, or 366 if it's a leap year. These team members are constantly looking at all of the systems aboard the space station, making sure everything is functioning as planned. They control everything from cameras on the station to attitude control, to robotic arms, flight planning for the crew members, communication with the crew members, environmental control and life support systems, and more. And we're just about 1 minute until depart burn 3, the next step of the journey home for Crew-6 from the International Space Station. Depart burn 3 lasts about 1 minute and 17 seconds, propelling the crew at 5 meters per second. And depart burn 3 has begun right on time. Again, this burn will last about 1 minute and 17 seconds. Anyway, I have confirmation that depart burn 3 is complete.
Dragon SpaceX, we had a nominal departure 3 burn.
SpaceX Dragon copies.
Again, confirmation of depart burn 3 as planned. The next burn will be depart burn 4. We won't be expecting this until 7:17 p.m. this evening. So it'll be a pretty quiet time period for the crew members until then. Again, tracking splashdown tonight at 12:17 a.m. Eastern Time, September 4th.
SpaceX Dragon step 9.3 is complete.
Copy, Dragon 9.3 is complete. And just stepping back to 8.3, wanted to confirm what your observations were at the funnel and the disk itself.
And SpaceX, our initial indication was airflow at the burst disk, followed by reduced airflow at the urine funnel.
Copy, Dragon.
And the precursor to that, there was liquid visible on the other side of the burst disk, but didn't really see it rupture.
If you're watching live, this view from the International Space Station as we continue to watch Crew-6's journey home aboard Dragon Endeavour. They undocked at 6:05 a.m. Central Time this morning. Again, we're targeting splashdown off the Florida coast at 12:17 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow, Monday, September 4th. Now, this view coming live from the International Space Station, you do indeed see a SpaceX Dragon spacecraft there. That is Dragon Endurance, which just arrived last week, bringing the Crew-7 astronauts to the International Space Station. They will be living on the space station for about 6 months, but for the past week, we've had 11 crew members on the space station, with both of those Dragons as well as a Soyuz spacecraft having all brought crew. We like to have this what we call handover period so that the departing crew can bring the new crew up to speed on life aboard the International Space Station, any research or scientific experiments they're working on, as well as, of course, safety briefings. Right now, the International Space Station is flying. They just crossed over into an orbital daytime, seeing a sunrise and sunset every 45 minutes, actually flying over southwest Montana. They are 261 statute miles above Earth, and you can see the International Space Station with your naked eye by going out and looking up as it passes over. You can actually find out how to do that on spotthestation.nasa.gov, putting in your location, and they will send emails and text messages for when the International Space Station is going to fly over your location.